That's a heck of a way to start a performance. I guess it goes to show that stuff happens even to the best of us. That was from Leonidas Kavakos, one of the great violinists of our time. If you ask 5 different violinists now who their favorite violinist is, you're going to get 5 different answers. But I think the answer from me right now is Leonidas Kavakos. I really have my pick of who I could talk about, but I really like him, so I'm going to talk about him. This is going to be a rather short video from me because we have access to a lot of interviews and things with Mr. Kavakos speaking for himself. So instead of hearing me talk a lot, you might as well hear him. Mr. Kavakos was born in 1967 in Athens, Greece. And I guess fortunately for him, his life doesn't include all the colorful things such as world wars, communism, religious conflicts, and other stuff that make life very tough for people. He started violin study when he was 5, and as a young man proceeded to win a lot of competitions across the globe. One of the reasons that I really love Mr. Kavakos is that he's not afraid of anything. Even the very toughest pieces out there don't faze him. I feel like he combines technicality and musicality and just the raw ability to play things really well like no other violinist does. If I had to call his playing one word, I would call it clean. Watching his playing, his finger action in his left hand is very clean. The fingers are just tapping out the notes one after another and they are crisp and clear. His bow arm is the same thing. It moves very well, very smoothly, and very simply. And when you watch him play, there's no nonsense, no excessive swinging or movement. He's standing there and showing you great music. That's the way I like it. I really admire the way Mr. Kavakos plays the music of Eugene Ysaye. Ysaye was a great violinist himself, and he wrote a set of 6 sonatas modeled after Bach's own sonatas and partitas. These are solo violin works that require the violinist to make a lot of sound and a lot of voices out of one violin. Now that's hard. Mr. Kavakos handles these challenges very well and plays this music by Ysaye extraordinarily. He captures the big scope of sound, he brings out the many voices, and he handles the technical requirements with so much ease. And I love his cool and efficient way of playing when he's playing this music. His efficient bow arm gives him a lot of power and control over those big multi-note, multi-string chords, and he makes the violin explode with sound. Now, I just talked about Mr. Kavakos having no nonsense. Well, I'm going to make this video kind of no nonsense. How do we channel a bit of Leonidas Kavakos in our own playing? As I said before, the way Mr. Kavakos combines technicality and musicality is like no other violinist. How do we do that? We often speak of technique and musicality as 2 different and even opposing forces in our own playing. When we learn a piece, we very often try to get the technique down, get those notes out first, and then we try to add the musicality. Unfortunately, that never really works. When we build up the way we play a piece in order to get the notes out, we end up locking ourselves into a way of playing that's usually not that interesting. When we learn a piece, we are physically building a way of playing it in ourselves. We can think of this as like building a house. You have to pour the foundation first, and then on top of that goes the framing, then the exterior sheeting, subfloors, plumbing, wiring, then finally drywall and carpeting or hardwood and interior finishes. Too often, we set out like we're going to build a musical mansion, but we pour the foundation for something completely different. You have to pour the foundation for the structure you want. No amount of carpentry can pretty up the wrong foundation into a different type of building. Starting without a musical vision is usually our mistake. When we see great artists like Mr. Oistrakh, Mr. Heifetz, or Mr. Kavakos, they make it look so easy, and we can be lulled into a sense of, oh, that musicality thing happens automatically. I just have to actually do it. Well, it don't work that way. The musicality, like phrasing, note groupings, leaps, jumps, intonation, dynamic shifts, slides, vibrato, and all other aspects of string playing come down to you physically doing something to the instrument. What happens when we just physically get through a piece? Well, 1, there's no musical vision. 2, when we do develop a musical vision, our mental programs of the piece and our own physical positions usually are in a place that's no good. It gets us through, but, quote, adding musicality is virtually impossible. Every time you play and repeat something, especially when you're first starting a piece, that sequence of notes and the way you play that sequence of notes gets stronger and stronger and stronger in your brain. If you play at first with no musicality, that is what you're training yourself to do. The music becomes unsatisfying, you lose motivation, and worst case scenario, you end up giving up and quitting. Even worse is if you've trained yourself to play without musicality, when you try to add it, you might think you're working very hard and getting a lot of result, but in reality, you're not. And that can be very discouraging. When you start a piece, you are pouring the foundation. You need to pour the foundation for the building you want to build. Start with a musical vision and build from there. If you develop a musical vision that you can bake into your playing right from the beginning, it's going to be so much easier to create beautiful music later. With a musical vision, you can make sure you have shifts and slides. You can make your bow arm jive with the dynamic shapes you want, only if you've paid attention to that stuff right at the beginning. In order to truly combine technique and musicality like a great artist like Mr. Kavakos, you need to build them together. Now that's my 2 cents worth. Here, I would like you to pause me and watch some interviews and monologues from Mr. Kavakos. They're very interesting, and why should I talk when he can speak for himself? Links to those are in the description. I'm also linking in the description several performances by Mr. Kavakos. There are many more, you can search for them. I recommend you listen to the ones I have linked, and maybe later, go search around for more. You will not regret the time you spend watching these. They're cool. We have a rich history of violinists and musicians to build on. We are a lucky generation. The videos I'm making on these players only scratch the surface of who they are and what they've done. Maybe something that makes them tick will make you tick. Read about them, watch them play, channel their passions. We have a lot to take advantage of, so why not do it? Well, guys, that is it for this series. This is video number 8 of 8, and I'm excited to have finished this project. For those of you who have watched this whole thing, thank you, and I'm sorry for subjecting you to me. And I hope you learned something. I also hope that I've spiked your curiosity, because no amount of stuff that I can talk at a camera can make you learn. You learn by yourself. And there is a lot more out there that you can just search up on your own. Your own research is a powerful thing. I want to give a special shout out to my students who have stuck with me through this weird time, and I hope that you've learned something and that you feel I've been a good instructor for you. This series will live on. I'm not deleting it. I'm probably going to be retitling the videos to something more interesting, but that's a future thing once all of this is over. I hope this will be a good resource for future viewers, and it'll certainly be interesting for me to look back on this and say, hey, that's where I was in May of 2020. Yeah, it's a weird time. And without this weird time, this series would not have existed. If there is a silver lining in all of this for me, it has been that I was able to push myself and what I can do. Push myself in the way that I teach. Push myself in the ways that I am capable of teaching. And that is a really good thing. I hope that you've been able to do something similar, and I hope we come out of this weird time better for everything. I guess that's it. Keep playing, stay curious, stay sane.